Good evening. It's crisis time in British Columbia again, but I'll let Ted tell you the rundown.
Tonight on Webster, a strict diet and rigorous exercise. If you stick to those two rules, you're guaranteed to lose weight. But what about the morbidly obese? For them, gastroplasty or stomach stapling may be the final resort. Webster finds out more from Dr. Ross Fox, who's performed more than 1,000 such operations, and Vanessa Mooney, one of his patients. But first, throughout all this hoopla surrounding the controversial labor amendments, the IWA has been unusually quiet. Just what does the 35,000-member union think about Lyle Hansen's changes to the labor legislation? We're about to find out. In the studio with Webster, Jack Munro, president of IWA Canada.
There are no changes to the legislation yet. There are hints. But Mr. Munro, let me put it to you quite bluntly, that when I interviewed Mr. Hansen, and I hope to do him later in the week again, he told, in answer to a question, he said that if this law is passed, never again can there be a lengthy major strike in British Columbia. And, before you speak, am I not correct in putting it to you that the vast majority of British Columbians, sick and tired of labor turmoil, would vote for just that recipe?
Jack, first of all, the IWA has, according to the introduction, been a bit quiet. Well, it isn't because we're trying to make up our mind on what our position is. The IWA, as everybody knows, has just gone through a ballot, and we have just eliminated the International Union. We had meetings all last week in the United States, and we have been away. So now we're back, and we are upset, as everybody else, about this nonsensical gibbery that is coming out of this government by people who don't understand, Jack. And this is the kindest thing that you can possibly say to Vander Zalm and to Hansen. And Hansen, I think, is a nice guy who doesn't have a clue what the hell this bill means. And I don't think that Vander Zalm understands how bad he is upset. Just a minute. He has upset the balance of what has to be in this province, some stability.
Just answer my question.
Right.
Is it not a fact that with the powers delineated for PEC and some of the other amendments, the old Labour Code is down the tube, long gone, that with this bill there would be labour peace in British Columbia,
Jack,
and most people would vote for it?
There will be labor turmoil in this province, and the reason the Fed is going slow is it's not amendments to the Labour Code. There are 35 pages of new junk that's brought in to apparently appease what we think Vander Zalm thinks the polls are saying to him. If the public begins to understand how bad this is, they will not be part of it. This
restores democracy to the workplace.
It is
That's
absolute
what it says.
Nonsense. Jack, there are so many examples that if the IWA is in bargaining, for example, and I have a committee bargaining someplace, and I write to them and tell them to look, slow down, so the rest of the negotiations can catch up with you, and we want to be in step with each other, and PEC or somebody, whoever it is, wants to know what we're doing, and the committee that works for a company in our industry refuses to give it to them, the company can fire them, and the committee. Without
PEC must take the action first.
Right,
if one of your people refuses to cooperate, and then the employer has the right to fire him.
What kind of nonsense is that? Giving these employers the right to police legislation by firing people?
Only if they upset PEC, or the Industrial Relations Commissioner.
Well, Jack, that isn't going to take very much to upset PEC. Let's look at the IWA strike last year.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I'm sure that the IWA strike last year, which Vander Zalm attempted to mediate personally and in which he failed, was the reason for much of the legislation right now, so that we can never have another $2 billion strike like that one.
Why did Vander Zalm fail?
Don't know.
He wanders in the middle of an election campaign with his podium, with his flags, with his campaign manager, and with his bagman. none of whom know anything about labor relations, and sits down and says, now look, I want to meet and I want to resolve this thing. We said, great, so do we want to resolve it. He left the meeting, Jack, and went out and said publicly to the cameras, I understand. He indicated he agreed with the trade, with the
We're
with the
not
IWA.
fighting last year's strike
No, right,
again.
Right, but why did he fail? He went and met with the chief executive officers after, and they hammered him into line.
No, that's just, you're off the topic altogether. I want you to tell me.
Right.
I'll give you another chance to explain it.
All right.
Do you say this bill means the end of free collective bargaining in British Columbia?
Yes.
Why?
Because it doesn't allow free collective bargaining. It allows some meetings maybe at the whim of somebody else. Free collective bargaining means an exchange of arguments, an exchange of demands, the withdrawal of demands, the withdrawal of proposals or whatever. There is absolutely no point in any future negotiations withdrawing anything off the table.
Why?
Because the PEC or the cabinet, and it doesn't matter which one, will do whatever they decide, whatever they think is in the public interest, what the settlement is going to be.
You're talking about the ability of the commissioner to, whatever there is a threat to public interest, to move in. But let's go back to some of the old things. You went back to history. Is it not a fact that the Labour Board decisions were tilted generally and substantially over the years since the Act came in favour of Labour? And now the tilting has been reversed a bit.
Jack, we should slow down. The answer to that is no. The short answer to that is no. For a law to work in any kind of a law in our society, it has to have some fair bit of confidence in the people, even if you disagree with the law. You know, the way we work is we comply with it. We cannot comply with this law because it means the end of the trade union movement, and it means the end of collective bargaining. When the labor code was in existence, it was respectable lawyers, the Laxtons and the Schroeders and the Pigeons on the union side, and the Trevinos and the Gavin Humes and Bruce McCalls on the employer side, who understood the delicacy, and good law was made before the labor code because they understood it. This law is written by vindictive lawyers who don't give a damn about tomorrow.
Well, let me ask you the question again. You backed into it. Will you comply with all the provisions of this Act
No.
when it's amended, even if the powers of PEC are moved up one step to the Cabinet?
No. And powers of PEC are not the most significant thing. Jack, it destroys in a free society the right of free people to do what the law allows us to do in a free society, and that's to bargain collectively. The trade union movement cannot comply.
Was it not time, however, for picketing to be restricted to primary picketing and wiping out secondary boycotts, hot goods, which had become an anathema and were affecting all kinds of people not involved in the dispute?
Jack, the trade union movement in British Columbia has done one hell of a good job in trying to settle down what some people think was a pretty volatile labor climate. The building trades, and I've said it on your show before, in the last 5 years have brought in every project they've been involved in ahead of schedule and under budget. The IWA, for goodness sake, since 1959, if you don't talk about 1986, has had about 10 or 11 weeks of strike. Since 1959, that's 28 years. Now that's not a bad record. Why should we have our rights completely destroyed by this thing?
What it is really, mind you, PEC can order, for instance, he can order many things. After, he can order a 40-day cooling off period early on if he wants to in the public interest. Is that not a good thing?
Jack, there may be some things that are a little awkward for some people to think about. The ineffectiveness of society is in British Columbia is being blamed on the trade union movement. The 40-day cooling off period is not 40 days anymore. I have a scenario here that if we started on June the 15th, when our agreement expires in 1988, we could very easily be up till Christmas without going on strike, without imposition of anything, just by employers changing their offer, by whoever the hell it is deciding that we're going to vote on this, we're going to vote on this, we're going to vote on something else. By Christmas, we could end up with a report, Stu Hodson's report, it's a fact of life, it isn't imaginary, that says we should work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day in logging, 12 hours a day in manufacturing on Christmas. And if our people said we're not going back to work at Christmas time on that settlement, and we rejected it, you remember, after 4 months on strike by 92%, that if Peck ordered that, or the cabinet ordered it, and if our people didn't comply, the employers could fire all the chairmen and all the job stewards and anybody else they wanted to in the industry.
But they couldn't.
Because we refused to work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day.
There is a very interesting provision there, though, perhaps you don't care about it, in the IWA, whereby a member expelled from a union for other than non-payment of dues cannot lose his job. Now, does that not give a little bit of democracy in the workplace?
Jack, in union constitutions, there are a lot of various methods to police the agreement. That's a pretty severe thing, and I don't know of any unions today that use it very much. But that's a constitution adopted by the membership.
Mm-hmm. Now, does the ability to pay, do you think, from these complicated acts, cover only the private sector?
No.
The public sector, sector.
No, it covers everybody. The private sector, we have now, under this act, a complete society that is essential services, according to somebody. According to somebody. And Jack, that is unacceptable.
No. You're saying that the commissioner has the power at any time that the economic well-being, the health or safety, welfare of residents or educational services is affected, he can step in.
Yep.
Do you suggest that includes the lumber industry?
Sure. Anything that he decides, there are no guidelines. What the hell is public interest?
Public interest is
anything.
Revenue of the government.
Right, if we go on strike with one small plant and that plant doesn't contribute $100 to the government for trees that they use in stumpage, is that not public interest? They have to cut something out that costs $100.
More with Jack Munro after the break. Jack Munro, you know as well as I do, the government in session has always had the power to order people back to work and did so in that famous strike in the 70s. What's wrong with putting in the hands of Peck to pass his recommendations back up to the cabinet to protect the public interests of British Columbia?
Jack, what is the public interest?
The economy.
It's whatever Peck or whoever it is decides what public interest is. There are no guidelines. There is absolutely not. Jack, what this does, the easiest way to explain this bill is that this bill has systematically taken apart the labor code or anything else that applied to workers in this province that would allow employers to win every argument that they have lost since 1963 before the Labor Board or in the courts.
That's a very serious charge you're making.
Every argument, Jack, in our dispute, because Vander Zalm was politically embarrassed because he didn't settle it, because he knuckled under to the chief executive officers, Jack. Every case in our dispute that we won before the Labor Code has been systematically taken apart by the drafters of this bill.
Changed in this bill, okay.
Changed.
But is it not a good thing?
That isn't Vander Zalm and that isn't Lyle Hansen.
You know as well as I do that big unions have often taken propaganda strike votes at the earliest possible date, given the executive the power to strike, and used that as a club long before there was a legitimate strike vote. That's been stopped. That's good.
It's not good, Jack, and there's a war of nerves. There's all kinds of strategies go on. The fact is that the industrial relations climate in British Columbia has been pretty damn good recently, except up until 1986 when I don't know what happened to the employer community. They went absolutely bonkers. The irritants, Jack, don't justify the demise of democracy.
Democracy.
Right.
You keep saying democracy.
Workers have the right to withhold their labor. Jack, the Stu Hodson mess that he recommended, he said that I want you, or the words were that we work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day in logging, 12 hours a day in manufacturing plants, and that's all right as long as the average work doesn't exceed 40 hours. That means that a logging operation can say, look, I'm going to work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months of the year and lay you off for 6 months, and that averages 36 hours a week.
But that would only have come about had that been a fact-finding report endorsed by and reviewed by Mr. Peck. That may not happen. Mr. Peck may show much sensitivity in where he applies the threat to the public interest.
Jack, that report was accepted by the employers. They voted on it. It was accepted by the government. They wanted it implemented. And would Peck stand up to that pressure?
I'm not going to cast any aspersions on him, but there are some good things.
Neither am I. I know Ed Peck. I know, and
the hot declarations, they had become ridiculous.
There is nobody.
Extended picketing had become ridiculous.
Well, I don't accept that they had become ridiculous, Jack. I don't. Look, the problem with this bill is it is so massive that we can jump all over the place and have examples. It destroys the right to free collective bargaining, and when somebody in power decides they are going to weaken the system, no matter where it is in the world, the first place they go after is the trade union movement.
Why aren't the employers screaming about it then if it destroys it?
Because they are short-sighted. And I feel sorry for Matkin. Matkin was one of the three wise men, along with Noel Hall and Judge Taggart, who put together the old labor code. And anybody that's involved with industrial relations, Jack, if they're being honest with you, have to say this bill is abominable.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can't believe what I'm hearing here. It almost sounds as if, Mr. Webster, you're trying to justify it in your own mind, and even you're having trouble with it. Can you explain to me how, if you have a dispute, now you have a situation where replacement workers are allowed to be hired to scab the dispute,
right?
And they are now allowed to be able to vote on the next offer?
Right.
How can that possibly cause anything but busted heads all over the place? It's going to make it worse.
Shift, this caller's point, let me interrupt you, caller, it's a super point. If we've got one shift working with 30 people on it, the employer hires 2 more shifts of strike breakers.
How do you think they're going to vote?
Put some nonsensical offer on the table. You have to vote it, and if part of the condition is they're voting for who gets the jobs, how the hell are the strikebreakers going to vote? They're going to vote to keep their job, and to hell with the original workers.
Well, I want to ask a very stupid question.
Scabs vote in this plant.
Is hiring strikebreakers legal in this province?
No.
Not right now, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
This is better than Parklinton could have dreamed of in Alberta.
I want to accept your criticism. I'm putting the questions to provoke Mr. Munro accurately.
Jack, you've been around long enough. You know, it's one thing to provoke questions, but the way you're going about this, it's almost as if you don't really understand what's going on. You're not that silly or that dumb. I mean, you ought to know what he's trying to do.
I know what he's trying to say. Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
There's an admirer of yours, Jack, who nobody in that is still sane can defend this bill.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Munro, I have a question that's been troubling me ever since this bill came down, and that's the authorship of the bill. Now, a lot of people in the trade union community are making reference that it was strictly drafted by management people. Now, if there was any labor people involved in there, I'd appreciate it if you told us, and if not, the public should know. And I agree with you, it is a gutting of the 73 Labor Code. If you go through it clause by clause, there are specific clauses now in there that negate every victory that the trade union movement has won under the old code. Now, if you have the identity, or you know the people from the management community that helped draft it, because there have been reports in the papers that the Ministry of Labor lawyers had absolutely nothing to do with it. And this bill was not just drafted from October after the election. Apparently it was in the fire long before the election. So we should know these things.
I can't tell you who drafted it, but I know Jordan and Gall, who are disreputable people in my opinion.
Not
they are.
They're labor lawyers on the other side.
Labor, Jesus, that's an insulting the word. They were very happy with this bill, Jack. I would assume that they had one hell of a lot to do with the drafting of this bill. The charade that was made out of Hansen and his people traveling this province had absolutely nothing to do with this bill.
Okay.
Nothing to do with this bill.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, how you doing there, Jack?
Go ahead, please.
Which one?
Yeah, both. Jack Munro, Jumpin' Jack Munro, I'd like to call you, and it's not a facetious comment. I enjoy listening to you. Jack Webster, about democracy, I'm getting sick and tired of listening to democracy all the time. The unions are the most democratic process in British Columbia. In management, in the companies, you have a right side triangle with the president at the top, and everybody else answers to him. In the union movement,
What's your question on the bill?
with regards to turmoil, the turmoil that will be created like this, but and Jack, you can back me up on this. Since 1942, we have been a certified bargaining agent for the company. One strike, one labor relations board hearing. Our membership has voted 94% to back up the Federation of Labor.
All right, that's what's going on out there, Jack.
Okay, more questions to Monroe after the break. Jack Munro is the Canadian head of the IWA Canada. Go ahead, please, on Bill 19.
Hi, Jack.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jack Webster.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to Jack Munro there.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jack. Listen,
Hi.
My wife and I are both union people, eh?
Right.
And this bill 19 and 20, people here in BC have to wake up. This bill isn't only going to hurt the union people,
No.
it's going to hurt the non-union people.
Right.
And I feel that the unions aren't doing enough to fight this bill. Because I'll tell you something, this man is a very dangerous man.
Okie dokie.
This is going to change everything in British Columbia, Jack, and I don't know if we're doing enough or not, but we're working in a systematic manner. We want to give him an opportunity to withdraw this thing. He's got to get rid of it.
You
Jack.
just told me you're not going to comply with this bill if it
Right.
passes.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
You prepared to go to jail?
Jack, I don't have much thoughts about volunteering to go to jail. That's ridiculous. Who the hell wants to volunteer to go to jail? I don't want to go to jail. It may be necessary, but I sure as hell don't want to.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Monroe.
Hi.
I'd just like to say that I'm in full support of your fighting this bill. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I can't believe that Mr. Webster is sitting there making light of it, as being as an intelligent person that he is.
Who's making light of it? I
I
said it was
believe
the
he
most important crisis we've faced in labor. Bill 19, I'm making no light of it whatsoever. I'm putting the questions to Mr. Monroe so that Mr. Monroe, if he can come back with the answers.
So I don't think so, Jack. It seems to me like you're
Well, you're wrong.
you're supporting this bill.
I am not supporting the bill.
Fool. It does. It really does. You know that this is a bad bill.
I'm not here as a propagandist for Monroe or the IWA or for social credit or
entitled
for
to my
Hanson.
opinion, and I think-
And I shall put these points to
Being
Hanson
upfront,
when
know what I mean?
when I speak to Hanson on
Also
Thursday
like
night.
to say
And
that-
for the first time in many years,
Hey,
I
Jack.
Give him hell,
strongly
caller.
resent your
Give him hell.
remarks.
Give him hell, caller.
Go ahead.
Gee, settle down, Jack.
Webster?
Yeah, go ahead from Kelowna.
Yes. Jack Webster, I would like to tell you how this bill is going to affect me and my job. If Bill 19 is passed, I and about 130 fellow employees have worked for a local packing house which recently went into receivership. In our contract, we had provisions for successor
Successor rights.
right.
Right.
Now, if Bill 19 is passed, we are all out the door
Yep.
because there is absolutely no
That's right.
way that they have to keep us on, and there are people there who have worked there for 20 and 25 years. And, I mean, where are they going to get jobs?
Are you saying that if the company goes bankrupt, they can start it up non-union? Is that correct?
That's right.
If they deliberately do it to go bankrupt, according to what's in the paper, they can't get away with it. But they can sell the equipment and somebody else can start another plant.
You read Section 53,
I know, ma'am.
and it's going to affect all of us because they can hire people back. We've worked for years trying to build up a decent wage, and now they can just, we can just all be out the door, and they can hire somebody for half the wage.
You know, everybody should understand, and this caller is making an excellent point. This bill is a restructuring of the economy of British Columbia. And it's going to be restructured so the employers will never, ever again lose an argument in front of the courts or in front of some makeshift labor relations board when they're fighting their employees. This bill is designed to take care of the rinky-dink employers in this province that happened to suit Mr. Fantastic out there. You know that there's some restaurant beefed in Kitimat had a beef with him, and he said, we'll fix it up. He put it in the bill and destroyed the closed shop provisions, Jack, because of some rinky-dink restaurant that had a bad time because their employees wanted to organize. And that's what this bill is drafted after. It doesn't make sense, and it cannot become law.
What you're telling me, therefore, is that it's not only the powers of Peck you're afraid of.
Not at all. Jack, if they, from the first place they mentioned that office, if they went from that and eliminated everything behind that in the bill is still unacceptable.
Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yes?
Just, I just want to make a couple of comments, and it's more or less to reinforce what Brother Monroe has been saying. I've been around the down British Columbia negotiating collective agreements for over 25 years. And you know, they have just taken and made my job very, very easily. Because what I will do, I will put my 76 proposals on the table and I will wait until Mr. Peck decides what ones he's going to give me.
Yep.
It's just that simple. I no longer have to bargain. I no longer have the right to bargain. I put my proposals forward, and I'll hang on to each and every one. I won't trade them off. I will not do the normal bargaining, and I will let Mr. Peck make the decision for me.
Doesn't make sense to
And one other point I want to make, and that's democracy in the workplace. It seems to me that everything that is said here is democracy on the trade union side. What about democracy on the other side of the fence? What about the shareholders' democracy? They have people that bargain collective agreements for them, and do they ever go back to the shareholder? Do they have the right to say we're going to lock you out?
Okay, sir. Much obliged. Must take a couple more calls. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, Jack. I hate to say this, but you have been coming across like a bit of an apologist for this labor legislation.
Nonsense!
And I want you to tell me now if you know of an example of an economy where things have actually improved as a result of taking away rights from workers. Now, I mean, give me some examples. Is Louisiana, some of those southern states, they've got pretty weak labor codes. One would expect to find a really robust economy there, Jack.
Yes.
And yet that's not the case. Our record here for lost time as a result of labor disputes is much better than Ontario's and much better than Quebec. If they don't need that legislation there, we certainly don't need it here. And I'm waiting your comment, Jack.
I think this is a bill which is full of powerful compulsion, which makes it almost impossible to have free collective bargaining in British Columbia. And if you're a public sector employee, God help you.
Right.
Thank you.
It is.
And I'm not making that statement because of what he said about it. I've been around this province since Bill 39 and before.
Jack, look, a lot of people who watch this program have everybody has the utmost respect for you. There is so much emotion out there, Jack. If anybody tries to defend this bill, then people
I'm not defending the bill. I'm asking you questions to see if you've done your homework.
You're trying to get me worked up, and you are getting everybody worked up, and that just proves the point. Not that I'm not criticizing you. I'm saying that's how bad this bill is.
Go ahead, please.
This is a disaster.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, I'm with you, Jack. I think it's high time that the union got the heads chopped off of them. They're trying to run this country.
I'm not on that side either.
About the working people. It's strictly for power, and that's what it's all about.
Okay, bye.
Why, what
Next
kind
call.
of nonsense is that? Jack?
Go ahead, please.
Jack,
I want no explanations from you. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Jack?
Yes.
Why the hell don't you go out into the street and find out what the ordinary people think about this act?
Well, believe me,
unions.
Believe me, we didn't fight hard enough
A lot
against...
of people out in the street that have a lot to say about this, and the unions are only a small percentage of the population of BC.
Well, what do you have to say about it?
What do I have to say about it? It's about time you got those damn unions under control.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead from Victoria.
That guy's over here in this country, left his own country, because we do a better job.
Made a statement, gentlemen, that is not accurate. Under a recent Supreme Court decision, striking and collective bargaining is not a right. And therefore, Mr. Munro is inclined not only to challenge provincial legislation, but national legislation, that I think is going a little too far. Thank you.
Don't misread that. The Chief Justice, the highest person in this land involved in the court system, does not agree with his brothers on the bench, and the decision from the bench was not outlawing strike. It was saying that the government, provincial governments, have the right to restrict it.
Provincial and federal governments, that decision said, have the rights to write political legislation controlling strikes, essential services, and anything else in the labor movement. One final question from you. You see nothing bright ahead, even if Hanson backs down on the powers of PECs and puts them in the hand of the cabinet.
Jack, you can't patch this bill up. It is so bad. It's a restructuring of the process in British Columbia. The bill should be shelved, never brought back, or whatever. And the Premier should the Premier should save all the face he can. And if he would tell the province of British Columbia tonight that bill will never ever come back into the legislature, there would be one hell of a lot of happy people, including the employers, including the people who wrote it, who don't and didn't understand how bad it was.
My thanks to Jack Munro, regional president of the IWA. I've got to change pace to a hell story after this. Take it away. There is a medical condition called morbid obesity, and for that condition you must be at least 100 pounds overweight. Show me the slide. That woman on the left, the slim one, weighs how much?
141.
The woman on the right, the fat one, weighs how much?
255.
In my studio, you will now, if you haven't already, met Vanessa Mooney, who is a patient of Dr. S. Ross Fox, a surgeon from Auburn, Washington, who's going to tell us how morbid obesity can be cured and what you did for this woman in this incredible fashion.
Jack, morbid obesity is one of the most difficult things we treat in medicine.
Fat people.
Fat people. It's frustrating for physicians because we treat them so poorly. We're unsuccessful with them. All of the therapies we know how to use result in less than 3% success. And anyone who's 100 pounds or more overweight knows what a struggle it is. So about 20, 25 years ago in this, in North America, we began to do surgery operations, do operations on people who are morbidly obese, and through the years the operations have changed, and currently we're stapling stomachs.
Okay, before we staple stomachs with demonstrations on some little kit you have, I want to go back to the fat Vanessa Mooney. You were how heavy?
255.
How long ago was that?
2 years ago.
How long did it take you to get down to your present slim, trim size, what, 8, 7?
Size 8.
Size 8 dress? How long?
About a year.
A year?
Mm-hmm.
And are you eating well?
Yes, I ate fine.
Was it a painful procedure to go through?
No, not any more so than having your gallbladder out or any other kind of surgery.
When you were morbidly obese, how was your outlook on life?
Well, I think I've only realized, Jack, in the last few months how it's really changed. There was a lot of things that I shunned, activities and clothing, that kind of thing.
You pretended that, like other fat people, you were happy.
I think there's a part of me that did that, yes.
Now we come, and then you came to see Dr. Fox. Now, Dr. Fox, tell me precisely what this is. Stomach stapling.
Well, it's that, Jack. We have a device that comes with staples in it that actually was pioneered in Russia. And through the years, it's gone through mutations, and currently what we do with this gadget is place it across the upper stomach and create a partition in the upper stomach so that when the food comes into the stomach, it hangs up there.
Is this the stomach?
That's the stomach.
You hold the stomach to that camera there, and you tell me.
If you don't mind, Jack, I'll hold it right side up.
Grateful you did. I thought it was a duck.
This is the food pipe right here, the esophagus, main part of the stomach, duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. What we do with this gadget is place it on the stomach, and of course in a heavy person, the challenge is getting in there so that you can put this on. We place it on the stomach this way and close it. The staples are all preloaded in this. We squeeze the handle thusly, drive the staple simultaneously, pop it open, take it off, and there's a row of staples right here that are stainless steel and creating a baffle.
Now, how much of this entire thing is the stomach?
This whole thing is the stomach except for this little nubbins right here, which is the esophagus, and this little nubbins here, which is the intestine.
So you reduce the capacity of the stomach by what proportion?
By at least 95%, and in most of the folks, 97%. That is to say, we leave a 3% stomach. A little stomach within the regular stomach. We have to reinforce the outlet, Jack, or they'll stretch it. They'll overeat and stretch the outlet.
But does that mean the person can only eat 3% of the food they previously ate?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. Vanessa eats 2 tablespoons of food, and she's full. She's stuffed, like having eaten a Christmas dinner.
What keeps you alive, Vanessa?
Well, I still eat. I eat salads and fresh vegetables, and I eat shrimp and crab, things like that. And I take multiple vitamins every day.
That would be like the equivalent of maybe 2 cups of food this size?
Maximum.
Or 3 shot glasses, I think it said in your
Exactly.
material.
That's right. We give the folks a 1-ounce shot glass, Jack, and we say, you've got to live out of this. We're going to create you a stomach that will hold only 1 shot glass of food.
Well, I hate to ask you as a patient, Vanessa, sitting here, but what is the prognosis for longevity if you are surviving on 3 large tablespoonfuls of food in your reduced stomach for the rest of your life?
You don't survive on that for the rest of your life, Jack. What happens is, initially, 2 tablespoons of food 3 times a day. A year later, 6, 8 tablespoons. She now holds more than just 2, but she stretched her stomach because she's 2 years post-operative. But her weight loss is stabilized, and she's still eating tiny amounts of food. For this to work, it has to permanently fix the stomach so the folks can't go back to their original weight. They have to eat tiny amounts of food from now forever.
But it does expand so that they can eat 3
It does.
small meals a day?
That's correct. This little pouch stretches some, not a lot, but it stretches enough to stop the weight loss. Vanessa is now 140 pounds, and she hasn't lost much in the last 3-4 months.
No, I'd like to get to 134.
You're going to continue down. What did you have for lunch today?
Well, as a matter of fact, I ordered a ham and cheese croissant, and I ate about this much off the end, and Dr. Fox ate part of my lunch, and the rest is wrapped up in saran wrap.
And that'll do for your next lunch?
And breakfast tomorrow. Yeah. Yes.
But the vitamins must be vitally important.
Oh, yes, Jack, we have to supplement.
And of course, in her weakened state, how long did it take you to lose that?
About a year.
What about physical activity?
Yes, he demands that. He's a real bear about that. But I'm not weak. I have a lot of energy.
Oh, we do something the same up here. I know, but Dr. S.
Yes.
Ross Fox, you're from Auburn, Washington.
Suburb of Seattle, yes. Jack.
But to be morbidly obese, you must be someone who is life-threatened, surely.
Well, that's where the term morbid obesity comes from. Morbid means
Heavy enough will
Latin.
kill you.
That's right. Is Latin to be sick, nigh unto death.
And so not just big, robust, fat people with pot bellies. You wouldn't do it to them, would you?
Well, the definition is 100 pounds overweight, and usually if the folks are 100 over, Jack, we will do them. But not without checking them carefully. We do a thorough physical exam on them. We do psychological testing. We try to determine if they're a good candidate, and we turn down quite a number of them.
Oh, Vanessa, I'm delighted to meet you.
My pleasure.
Just think, all I've got to do is take this home tonight, cut a hole in my tummy, stick that in there,
I wouldn't advise it.
put in the staples, and go on 3 shot glasses of food a day. Questions to the doctor and Vanessa Mooney after break. We have Vanessa Mooney, who lost 117, was it?
About 115 or somewhere in there.
And Dr. S. Ross Fox. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to know, after you have your stomach stapled, if you can drink alcohol.
You asking Vanessa or me?
You.
The answer is yes. We do. You got to understand something about people who have their stomach stapled, and that is we want them to avoid foods that are empty calories. Sugar, nothing nutritional in sugar, just calories. Alcohol, nothing nutritional in alcohol, just calories.
Yeah.
But we don't want to have people stop living, and so what we say is, yes, you can have dry wine. We say dry wine because that's not sweet, and so they drink that. They need to know, though, that because their food intake is cut down so much, they become very sensitive to alcohol, and so a little bit goes a long ways. They turn out to be a cheap drunk.
Can they drink pop endlessly?
Yes, as long as it is low-cal pop.
Low-cal.
No sugar in it.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yep.
My mom is 5'5", about 330 pounds, and she just turned 60. And I was wondering, would this type of operation be okay for her? She has high blood pressure as well, but that is all. That has been.
You can't diagnose, but generally speaking, what do you say?
Generally speaking, yes. The oldest we've done is 63, and at 330 pounds, she's a good candidate just off the top, Jack.
Good. She'll go down to maybe 150?
For someone that old, we would shoot for 180.
180. Go ahead from Victoria.
Yes, hello, Jack. Dr. Fox. I had this surgery in 1981 in St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver.
Okay.
And at the time I had the surgery, I weighed 255 pounds. I went down to 150 pounds, and now in 1987 I'm back over 200. I'm also had a lot of physical problems, vitamin B deficiency and so on. And I wondered if you could comment on that, please.
Yes, if you had it done in 1980, you probably had what we call a gastric bypass, which is a different kind of stapling than we're doing currently. And anemia was common. The weight regain is related to the fact that you're into the kinds of food that will slip right through the pouch. And that is a reason why we insist that the folks stay in close touch with us. If we're going to do their surgery, we've got to follow them forever, because if they get back to the old eating habits, they'll regain some of the weight. Usually not all of it, but they can regain some of it.
Go ahead, please.
Well, hello. I'd like to know that the part of the stomach that's not being used, does that become atrophic?
Negative. It does not. Her question is, Jack, if we don't use this part of the stomach very much, is it going to shrink down and become small? There's an old wives' tale around that it will become small. It does not. The food drops through the pouch into the regular stomach, and there's enough regular gastric activity that the stomach thinks it's okay and doesn't atrophy.
Go ahead, please.
Can you tell me if it's reversible? And number two, what happens if you overeat?
It is
Vanessa,
reversible.
Vanessa, what happens if you overeat?
You throw it up.
You throw it up.
What happened to your ham and cheese sandwich today? She overate today,
I didn't
Jack.
eat very much. It was just a real tough cheese.
Second question.
The second question is, if you overeat, you throw it up, and then the folks don't really get truly nauseated. They feel a knot right under their breastbone here. Feel like they've got a bad belch that won't come up. And they know that they've overeaten. And
Did
they
you
just
answer if it's reversible?
It is reversible. We can reverse it because we don't want to do something we can't undo if we must.
Go ahead, please.
Dr. Fox, 2 years ago I had that the bowel bypass, which they had to reverse within 4 months after having it, because I had the extreme vomiting and the diarrhea, where I was spending like 29 times a day in the bathroom. And I couldn't deal with that. And it has also left me with 2 large hernias from the second incision for the reversal.
All right. That's a common scenario. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, could this stapling possibly work for me, even with the fact of the hernias and having that bowel bypass?
Yes.
Once before.
Yes. As a matter of fact, they have not really worked much on your stomach, and so your stomach is accessible to us, and we could do it, and we see a fair number of those, and it's the result of years gone by having previous operative procedures.
See, I had the operation done at St. Paul's also, as the other caller had, and had extreme difficulties with it.
Good, good. How new is the stapling technique?
The stapling was begun 17 years ago, but this particular operation is about 8 years old, Jack.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Congratulations, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Good for you. I have a thyroid condition, doctor, and I'm 40 pounds overweight, and I really would like to look into this surgery.
I got to tell you that if you're 40 pounds overweight, you're not a candidate. We will not do this on anyone who is not 100 pounds overweight. That's very arbitrary. We admit that it's arbitrary. But down in the States, the insurance companies require that of us.
Go ahead. Oh, press the wrong one. Go ahead from Summerland. Is that the right one? Oh, the wrong one again. Go ahead from Summerland.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to say to Vanessa, thank you very much. You're an inspiration to me. You look wonderful. I had my surgery done in September, and I weighed 265 pounds then. And I can hardly wait until I'm down to your size.
Good luck.
What are you down to now?
I'm down to 189.
Oh, very good, eh?
It's
how
wonderful.
tall are you?
I have had none of the problems that your previous callers have mentioned. I think attitude has quite a lot to do with
Oh, yes.
how you react to the surgery and how you deal with it and everything. People who find difficulties, I think, a lot of time are looking for the problem.
Thank you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to know if a woman can still sustain a pregnancy.
Oh, yes. We've had 200, amongst our 1,100 patients, we've had 229, no, we haven't either. We've had 69 folks who have had full-term pregnancies, as nearly as I know, free of complications.
And
Now,
not even with the reduced protein intake or anything like that?
when you get pregnant, we supplement. We add additional protein to the diet. We watch the folks carefully. And one thing that we do is we stop the weight loss during the pregnancy. We pay attention to the fetus. We have to do that.
But you've already done the stapling.
That's correct.
And so therefore you just increase not the quantity, but the quality of the protein intake.
Both. We have them eat 5 to 7 times a day, and we be sure they get adequate protein.
And they're not allowed to lose weight during that period.
That's correct.
But they mustn't be pregnant when they start.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, Jack, we discourage them from getting pregnant until they get down to goal weight. And most of them accomplish that, but you know how pregnancies are. Once in a while they sneak up on us.
Go ahead, please. Hello.
Yes, Jack.
That's you.
Can I speak to Dr. Fox?
Yep.
Okay. Dr. Fox, I have a Marlex patch put in my stomach.
Yes.
Marlex patch?
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm familiar with it.
You know what this is?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can I have the staple operation?
Yes, but I think you've already have it. If you have a Marlex patch, did you have a Marlex mesh wrapped around your stomach?
No, as far as I know, it's just applied. They found a hole in my stomach after my gallbladder caused.
Oh, okay. Yes, you can have the stapling. That would not preclude the stapling.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. I'd like to ask the doctor if he would please discuss obesity from a genetic point of view and from just overeating.
Good question.
Well, answer it.
Good question. The genetic point of view, if we have folks who are morbidly obese, each parent is morbidly obese, all the children of that relationship run an 80% chance of being morbidly obese. If only one parent is morbidly obese, 55 to 60% is the chance. Okay, so how important is eating? Eating is important. Everybody gets heavy because they eat.
Am I morbidly obese?
Negative, no, you most assuredly are not.
No stapling?
No stapling.
Not even to lose, say, 40 pounds?
Not even to lose 40 pounds, Jack.
Be an easy way to do it, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, in a way, but also a hard way. This is, Jack, this is serious therapy. We do this only as a court of last resort. When the folks have done everything else they know how to do to lose weight, then they're a candidate for this kind of surgery.
Quick question, short answer. Under your medical system, what does it cost?
$6,000 US plus or minus 500. The whole square nine.
My grateful thanks to you, you slim, beautiful creature, Vanessa Mooney. Used to be a fat old thing. And to you, Dr. S. Ross Fox.
For helping her get that way.
Gastroplastic surgeon from Auburn, Washington. So far scheduled for tomorrow night, I've got the Pit Bulls Association, City Pound Man, Peter Hamilton of Life Force, and a pit bull. It's a subject I haven't tackled at all. Must do it once before the end of the week. 5 p.m. precisely.